what do you remember about Dwight D. Eisenhower?
Which one? Oh, he was the first president that I voted for. What do you remember, Papa?
Well, I knew he was a great general in the Second World War, and I knew that he changed parties. He started out being a Democrat. Correct me if I'm not.
You did?
Yeah, and then they ended up running under the Republican Party. Am I correct, Daddy?
Very good.
Yeah, I knew that that was a big thing in the family. Everybody was very upset about it.
What do you remember about Franklin Delano Roosevelt?
Well, I remember hearing him on the radio during the war. Fireside chats.
Well, I knew that he had run 4 terms, which no other president had ever done. And he took us out of the Depression through the Second World War. And he didn't see the end of the war, but he came close. And there was a lot of people who felt, and it was probably the people who were Republican Party, that he knew that Pearl Harbor was going to be bombed. But he knew that the only way he could get total support of the whole country was to allow the bombing to take place. Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
Do you remember the newsreels?
Ah, the newsreels, I do. Well, there was no television. We did not have television.
No.
But when you went to the movies, to the theater, they always had newsreels. And during the war, they would have different newsreels of the different attacks, you know. And that was kind of scary. Were you scared by that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I knew that I had a couple uncles in there, and I know my grandmother was upset, and my dad was upset. He had a brother in there, and it was scary
Another
times.
thing I remember about the war is in your window, on the first floor, you would put however many children you had in the armed forces, Army, Navy. At that time it was the Army Air Force. You would have a star. And if you have one star, that meant you have one child that was in the, and you had a star for each child, that was in the, and that's how you showed you had someone in the Army or Navy or Air Force.
Do you remember Hiroshima?
Hiroshima?
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I remember the newsreel. I remember that they showed the bomb, when it went off. That was very scary. And then they showed you what it looked like after the bomb. And it was all flat. There were no buildings. It was pretty scary.
It was scary times.
What do you remember about John F. Kennedy?
John F. Kennedy. I remember I voted for him. And that was kind of a magical time with the Kennedys in the White House. It was the first time I had seen the inside of the White House because Mrs. Kennedy gave a tour on television of the White House. And the day that Kennedy was shot, I was in the doctor's office waiting for my turn to go in to see the doctor, and the gentleman came in and he said, "Oh my God, President Kennedy was shot." And I said, "No." And when I went into the doctor's, he said, "Oh yeah." He said they shot Kennedy. What do you remember?
Well, I remember he came to Philadelphia before the election, and Uncle Jack, my brother-in-law, Uncle Jack Hip, and I were downtown at the Bellevue Stratford, and his limousine pulled up, and we got to actually put our hands out as he went by, and he shook our hand or touched our hand as he went into the hotel. And he was the first Catholic to run for President of the United States. And that was a big issue because because they wanted the church separated from the state, and they were afraid that the church would tell him how to vote or whatever.
Actually, he was the first. He was the first Catholic president.
Yes.
But there was another man who ran. What was his name? Al
Smith?
But that was in the 30s, I think. And he never did get the presidency.
I do remember the day he was assassinated. That was a big thing in the United States, of course. And then they caught supposedly the guy that shot him. And then he got shot on television.
Yeah.
They were taking him in, and he got shot. That was quite a scary time, too.
What were you doing when he was assassinated?
I was waiting for my doctor's appointment.
I was at work,
You were.
and when Oswald was shot the next day, I was home watching it on television.
Watching television.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
I saw that live.
Do you remember your first teacher?
My first teacher.
Or any of your teachers?
I can remember my
I
first
remember
teacher.
my first grade teacher.
Yeah, sure.
What was he or she's name?
Well, I went to parochial school, so it was, my teacher was a nun, and her name was Sister Mary Christie.
And I went to public school, and Mrs. Esterline was her name. I was not a real big student, but the thing that I can remember, and my mother saved it, we had to write the alphabet, and everybody who did it well got a little American flag stamped on their paper. Well, I didn't get a stamp on my paper, so what I did is I had a pencil case, and in the pencil case there was an American flag, and I cut the American flag out and glued it on my paper. And my mother saved that paper my whole life. In fact, it may be in one of our places now.
It's cute.
Okay.
Oh, that was great, man.